The ground beneath Major Kim Dae-ho's boots crunched with a sound he had never heard before. It was not dirt or leaves. It was the ash of his world. He stopped walking and held up his hand. The 36 people behind him froze in the darkness. Of the tunnel entrance? Scanner shows safe levels, he whispered into his radio. His voice echoed strangely in the empty space above them. 3 months ago, this tunnel led to a busy street in Busan. Now it led to nothing. Sergeant Park Min-ho moved up beside him. The young soldier's face was pale in the green light of their equipment. "Sir, should we go up?" Kim nodded slowly. They had been underground for 93 days. 93 days since the sky had filled with alien ships. 93 days since the world ended. Dr. Lee Haijin pushed past the soldiers, her tablet glowing in her hands. She never stopped recording. Every death, every explosion, every moment of their survival went into her digital records. "The radiation is almost gone," she said. They cleaned up after themselves. The first step onto the surface felt wrong. Kim had expected heat, or cold, or pain. Instead, he felt nothing. The air was clean. Too clean. It smelled like a hospital. Behind him, the other survivors climbed out one by one. These were the last people from the Busan military base. Soldiers, scientists, engineers, and a few lucky civilians who had been visiting when the attacks began. 37 people from a city that once held 3 million. "My God," whispered Park. Where the city had been, there was only smooth glass. The alien weapons had melted everything into a flat, dark mirror that stretched to the horizon. Here and there, twisted metals stuck up like broken bones. The mountains around them were unchanged, but everything else was gone. Kim pulled out his long-range radio and began scanning frequencies. Static filled his earpiece, then voices. Alien voices speaking in their clicking musical language. He had learned enough of it during their underground months to understand the basics. "Report complete," said the alien commander. "Mid-population. Eliminated as planned." Psychological analysis was correct. Species broke under pressure like all previous targets. Beginning resource collection in Sector 7. Kim felt something cold and sharp grow in his chest. He looked at the faces around him. Park was crying quietly. Dr. Lee was still recording, but her hands shook. The others stared at the glass wasteland that had been their home. Park asked, "What do we do now?" Kim switched his radio to the emergency frequency they had monitored for weeks. Voices crackled through the static. Humans' voices. Survivors reporting from around the world. A group in the Rocky Mountains, another in the Amazon. A few dozen from Australia, maybe a few hundred from the Siberian bunkers, the aliens thought. They had one. They thought humans were like the other species they had conquered, weak, ready to surrender when faced with overwhelming force. They had studied human history and decided that humans would give up after losing most of their population. But Kim knew something the aliens did not understand. He had seen it in the faces of his people during the long months underground. He had felt it growing in himself with each passing day. It was not hope. Hope was for people who still had something to lose. "Dr. Lee," he said quietly, "in your research, did you ever study what happens to predators when they lose their pack?" She looked up from her tablet. "They become more dangerous. Desperate animals take bigger risks. They fight harder because they have nothing left to protect except themselves." Nodded. He looked at his people again. These 37 faces were not the faces of defeated humans. They were the faces of something new. Something the aliens had created by trying to destroy them. "Park, get everyone ready to move. We have work to do, sir." "What kind of work?" Kim smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. He thought about the 7 billion people who had died. His wife and children in Seoul. Park's parents in Daegu. All the lives the aliens had snuffed out like candles. "The kind of work we were made for," he said. In the distance, alien ships moved slowly across the sky. They were mining ships coming to strip Earth of its resources. The aliens were so confident in their victory that they had sent their workers instead of their warriors. Another mistake. Kim began walking toward the glass wasteland, and his people followed. Behind them, the tunnel entrance disappeared into the mountainside. Ahead of them lay the ruins of their world and the beginning of something else. The aliens had wanted to see what happened when you killed billions of humans. Soon, they would have their answer. As they walked, Kim heard Dr. Lee speaking quietly into her recorder. Day 93, after first contact. The human survivors are adapting to post-extinction conditions. Psychological profile shows increased aggression and tactical thinking. The aliens may have made a serious error in their threat assessment. Kim almost laughed. Error was too small a word for what the aliens had done. They had turned the entire human race into a weapon pointed directly at them. Now all that remained was to pull the trigger. Dr. Choi. Sujin held the glowing vial up to the dim light filtering through the broken ceiling. The alien blood inside pulsed with a soft blue glow that hurt her eyes if she looked too long. She had been living in the ruins of Seoul National University for 6 weeks now, sleeping between the overturned lab tables and eating canned food. She found in the rubble the first alien ship had crashed 3 blocks away during the initial bombardment. While other survivors ran and hid, Sujin had walked toward the wreckage with her medical bag. She was a doctor first, a survivor second. Even alien corpses deserved study. Now she knew things about the Veltar that their own species had probably forgotten. Their blood carried oxygen differently than human blood. Their nervous system relied on electrical impulses that could be disrupted. Most importantly, they were allergic to a common earth bacteria that lived in soil. Interesting, she whispered, making notes on a water-stained piece of paper. She had no computer, no proper lab equipment, but her mind still worked. Very interesting. 1,000 kilometers away, Yoon Taman wiped sweat from his forehead as he connected the last wire. The device in front of him looked like a metal box covered in alien symbols, but inside was pure human engineering. He had taken 3 Veltar power cores and rewired them to explode instead of providing energy. Before the invasion, Yoon had built bridges and designed apartment buildings. Now he built bombs. The change had happened so naturally that he barely noticed it. When your world ends, you learn new skills quickly. The alien patrol would come through this area in 2 hours. They always followed the same route, checking the ruins for survivors. They thought humans were predictable. They were wrong about that too. Yoon buried his device under a pile of concrete and metal, then climbed to his hiding spot on the 2nd floor of a damaged building. Through his binoculars, he could see the alien landing craft in the distance. Right on time, in the subway tunnels beneath Seoul, Sergeant Park Min-ho moved through the darkness like a ghost. Behind him, 12 other survivors followed in complete silence. They had learned to walk without making sound, to breathe without being heard, to kill without being seen. The alien patrol above them consisted of 8 Veltar soldiers in their shining armor. They carried weapons that could burn through steel, wore suits that could stop bullets, and had technology that could detect heat from 100 meters away. It should have been impossible to defeat. But they had never fought in subway tunnels before. They had never fought an enemy that knew every pipe, every maintenance door, every hidden passage in the underground maze. They had never fought humans who had nothing left to lose. Park raised. His hand and his team stopped moving. Above them, alien voices spoke in their musical language. The translation device Park had built from salvaged parts whispered in his earpiece. "No signs of human activity in this sector," said the alien leader, proceeding to next checkpoint. Park smiled in the darkness. No signs of human activity. The aliens were looking for the wrong things. They expected humans to behave like the other species they had conquered. They expected surrender, fear, attempts to negotiate. They got war instead. The first alien died without making a sound. Park's knife, covered in a poison Dr. Lee had made from local plants, slid between the armor plates at the creature's neck. The second alien turned just in time to see Park's face before the darkness took it too. By the time the remaining aliens realized they were under attack, half their squad was already dead. They fired their weapons wildly into the tunnels, the energy beams lighting up the underground like lightning. But Park's team was already gone. It's vanished into passages, too small for armored aliens to follow. 8 minutes later, the tunnel was quiet again. 8 alien soldiers lay dead in their expensive armor. Their weapons, their equipment, their technology, all of it now belonged to the humans. Park spoke into his radio. "Base, this is Shadow Team. Package delivered, coming home." Major Kim's voice crackled back through the static. "Good work, Park. Dr. Choi wants those armor samples. She has new ideas." Across the city, Dr. Choi Soo-jin received the news with quiet satisfaction. More samples meant more knowledge. More knowledge meant better ways to kill aliens. She had already developed 3 different biological weapons from her studies. Soon she would have a 4th. The aliens had made another mistake in their long list of errors. They had assumed that killing most of humanity would make the survivors weaker. Instead, it had freed them from everything that once held them back. No laws, no ethics, no concern for civilian casualties or international agreements. Engineer Yoon watched through his binoculars as his bomb turned the alien patrol into scattered pieces of metal and flesh. He felt nothing except professional pride in his work. The explosion was clean, efficient, and completely untraceable. As he packed up his equipment, Yoon was already planning his next device, something bigger this time, something that would take out an entire alien transport ship. The Veltar had wanted to harvest Earth's resources. Instead, they had harvested something much more dangerous. They had taken ordinary humans and turned them into something new, something focused entirely on killing aliens. Dr. Choi sealed another vial of alien genetic material and smiled. Very soon, she would show the Veltar what human creativity could accomplish when applied to the problem of extinction. The awakening had begun. The radio crackled to life at exactly midnight. Major Kim Dae-ho adjusted the frequency and heard a voice speaking English with a thick Russian accent. "This is Moscow base calling any human survivors. We have 43 people alive in the subway tunnels. Can anyone hear this?" Kim picked up his microphone. "Moscow base. This is Korea base. We hear you. How many Veltar in your area?" "Maybe 200. They built a mining station where Red Square used to be. We killed 12 of them yesterday." Kim smiled. It was the same story everywhere. Small groups of humans hiding in the ruins, learning to fight, learning to kill aliens. In 3 weeks, he had made contact with survivor groups on every continent. The network was growing. Dr. Lee Haijin sat across from him in their mobile command post, a converted subway car they had dragged into an abandoned tunnel. Her laptop showed a map of the world covered in red dots. Each dot was a group of human survivors. Each dot was a weapon pointed at the Veltar. "The pattern is consistent," she said, showing Kim her notes. "Every group reports the same thing. The aliens expected us to surrender after the first wave of attacks. When we didn't, they sent ground troops to finish the job. Now those ground troops are dead." Kim nodded. The Veltar had studied human history, but they had studied the wrong parts. They looked at how humans surrendered in wars, how governments gave up when faced with superior force. They missed the part about what humans did when they had no government left to surrender. "What about the other worlds they conquered?" Kim asked. Dr. Lee pulled up another file. "I've been listening to their communications for weeks. Have a standard procedure. They attack. The local species fights back for a while. Then they negotiate surrender terms. The whole process usually takes 6 months. How long have we been fighting?" "For months. And we're getting stronger." In the ruins of Daijin, Dr. Choi Soo-jin worked by candlelight in what used to be a pharmaceutical factory. The power had been out for months, but her hands remembered how to make medicine, even in the dark. Except now, she was not making medicine to heal people. She was making poison to kill aliens. The biological agent in the test tube glowed faintly green. It was her 15th attempt, and finally she had gotten it right. The bacteria would attack Veltar nervous systems, shutting down their ability to move or think. Best of all, it was completely harmless to humans. Her radio buzzed with an incoming message. "Dr. Choi, this is Kim. We need 500 doses of your new weapon by next week." "I can make it," she replied, already calculating how much raw material she would need, "but I need more alien corpses for testing. Park's team will get you fresh samples tomorrow." 300 kilometers away, engineer Yoon Taman stood in front of 20 other survivors in a bombed-out factory. In his hands was a Veltar energy rifle, the kind their soldiers carried. Normally, it could fire 50 shots before needing a new power cell. Watch carefully, Yoon said, opening the weapon's casing. If you remove this safety chip and reverse these 2 wires, the rifle becomes a bomb. 1 shot and the whole thing explodes. An older woman raised her hand. What if we need the rifle to keep shooting? Then you modify it differently, Yoon said, pulling out another weapon. Cut here, add a wire there, and now it fires twice as fast. The aliens built their weapons to be safe and reliable. We make them dangerous and unpredictable. The survivors took notes, asked questions, practiced with broken alien equipment until they understood how it worked. By the end of the day, 20 more humans knew how to turn alien technology against its creators. This scene was happening all over the world. In London, a former electrician taught other survivors how to override alien computer systems. A chemistry student showed people how to make explosives from alien fuel cells. In Sydney, a mechanic demonstrated how to hotwire alien vehicles. The Veltar had made their technology standardized across their empire. Every weapon worked the same way on every world. Every vehicle used the same control system. Every computer ran the same programs. It made their empire efficient and easy to manage. It also made it vulnerable to anyone who learned how their systems worked. Major Kim received reports from around the world every night. The humans were not just surviving anymore, they were thriving. Every day brought news of successful attacks, captured equipment, dead aliens. The Veltar requesting reinforcements, Dr. Lee reported, translating an intercepted transmission. Their ground commander says human resistance is beyond normal parameters. Kim laughed. Beyond normal parameters. The aliens spoke like computers, reducing everything to data and calculations. They could not understand that humans did not follow parameters when their species was threatened. What's our count today? He asked. Dr. Lee checked her notes. Confirmed Veltar deaths, 347. Human casualties, 12. Numbers told the story. The aliens had better weapons, better armor, better technology. But the humans had something more important. They had nothing left to lose and everything to gain from every dead alien. The network was complete. Humans across the world were connected, coordinated, and armed with alien weapons turned against their former owners. The Veltar had wanted to harvest a planet instead. They had created an army. The Veltar supply depot sat in what used to be downtown Seoul, its silver walls gleaming under the morning sun. Inside, alien workers loaded containers with Earth-stolen resources onto transport ships. They moved slowly, confidently, like people who had never been hunted before. Major Kim Dae-ho watched them through his binoculars from a building 2 blocks away. 6 months ago, he would have called this a suicide mission. 40 aliens guarded the depot, all armed with energy weapons. His team had only 12 people with modified alien rifles and homemade explosives. But 6 months ago, Kim had still thought like a soldier fighting a war. Now he thought like a predator hunting prey. Team Alpha moved to position 3. He whispered into his radio. Team Beta, cover the south exit. Nobody leaves alive. The attack began at exactly noon, not with explosions or gunfire, but with silence. The first alien guard on the perimeter simply stopped moving. Dr. Choi's latest biological weapon shutting down his nervous system in seconds. The second guard turned to check on his companion and breathed in the invisible gas that Yoon had released from a hidden canister. By the time the aliens inside the depot realized they were under attack, half their guards were already dead. Park. Minho moved through the depot like death itself. His knife, coated with a toxin that killed Veltar in 30 seconds, found the gaps in alien armor with surgical precision. Behind him, his assassination team eliminated targets with the cold efficiency of butchers. The Veltar had studied human military tactics from their wars, but they had never seen humans hunt like wild animals. They expected formations, orders, predictable patterns. Instead, they got chaos designed to look random but calculated to maximum lethality. Command, this is Depot 7. An alien voice screamed into their radio. We are under attack by humans. They're everywhere. They're in the walls, in the air systems, There, the transmission ended with a wet sound that Kim knew meant another dead alien. 300 kilometers away, Dr. Choi Soo-jin watched alien workers collapse around their food processing plant in Daijin. The bacteria she had developed worked slowly, taking hours to kill, but the aliens did not realize they were infected until it was too late. "Beautiful," she whispered, making notes on her tablet. The contamination spreads through their shared feeding systems. One infected food processor can kill hundreds. Her radio crackled with a message from Kim. "Doctor, how many plants have you hit?" 17 so far. Conservative estimate says we have poisoned food supplies for over 3,000 aliens. Excellent. Continue the work." Dr. Choi smiled as she sealed another vial of bacterial culture. The Veltar had destroyed human food production on the first day of their invasion. Now the humans were returning the favor, but with precision the aliens had never achieved, in orbit above Earth. The Veltar fleet commander stared at his casualty, reports with growing horror. In 6 months of occupation, his forces had lost more soldiers than in the previous 50 years of conquest combined. The humans refused to follow standard resistance patterns, his intelligence officer reported. They do not attempt to reclaim territory or protect population centers. They simply kill our personnel and disappear. "What are their objectives?" the commander asked. "Unknown, sir." "They seem to attack randomly, but the results are always the same. Dead Veltar, stolen equipment, contaminated supplies." The commander switched to another report. "Psychological evaluation of human behavior. It's beyond our current understanding. Sir, previous species fought to preserve their civilization. These humans appeared to be fighting to destroy ours." Park Min-ho crouched in the ventilation system above the alien command center in Busan. Below him, 5 Veltar officers planned their next sweep for human survivors. They spoke in their musical language, confident that no human could understand them. They were wrong. Park had learned enough of their language to follow their conversation. More importantly, he had learned their command structure. Kill the leader, and the others would spend precious time establishing new authority. Kill the second in command. At the same time, and the survivors would panic. The poison gas canister in his hand was one of Dr. Choi's newest creations. Odorless, invisible, and lethal to Veltar in under a minute. He pulled the pin and dropped it through the ventilation grate. The aliens below continued their meeting for 30 seconds before the first one collapsed. By the time they realized they had been poisoned, all 5 were dying. Park spoke into his radio as he climbed back through the ventilation system. Command post eliminated. Moving to secondary target. The pattern was the same everywhere humans operated. Swift, silent, lethal strikes followed by immediate withdrawal. The Veltar never saw their attackers until it was too late. They never found human bases because humans did not stay in one place long enough to be found. Kim received the night's reports in his mobile command center. Confirmed kills. 412 aliens. Equipment captured. 67 weapons. 20 vehicles. 40 tons of supplies. Human casualties. 0. Dr. Lee looked up from her intercepted alien communications. Their morale is breaking, Kim. Listen to this transmission. The alien voice spoke in rapid, panicked clicks. Dr. Lee translated, "Request immediate evacuation. Human resistance has exceeded all parameters. They do not fight like any species in our records. They fight like something trying to make us extinct." Kim nodded slowly. The alien was right, but they still did not understand the full truth. The humans were not trying to make them extinct. The humans were succeeding. Dr. Lee. Jin pressed her hand against the cold metal wall of the alien ship and felt the vibration of its engines. 18 months ago, she had been a university researcher. Studying animal behavior, now she stood on the bridge of a Veltar dreadnought. Watching an alien world grow larger on the main screen, the ship had been captured 3 weeks ago when Park's team boarded it during a supply run to Earth, the Veltar. Crew had expected to find a few desperate human survivors hiding in the ruins. Instead, they found 200 humans armed with modified alien weapons and a perfect understanding of Veltar ship systems. The battle had lasted 12 minutes. No humans died. Status report, Major Kim Dae-ho called from the captain's chair. He looked strange sitting where a Veltar commander had once planned the destruction of Earth. His hands moved easily over the alien controls, switching between ship systems like he had been born to command spacecraft. Fleet formation holding steady, reported Yoon Tamin from the engineering station. All ships report ready for assault. Lee looked out at the other ships moving alongside them. 57 captured Veltar vessels, each one crewed by human survivors and loaded with weapons designed specifically to kill aliens. The largest fleet in human history, and every ship had once belonged to their enemies. How many humans total? Kim asked. 93,200,412, Lee replied, reading from her tablet, spread across the entire fleet. Kim nodded. From 7 billion to 93 million in 18 months. The Veltar had been very thorough in their extermination, but they had made one critical error in their calculations. They had left enough humans alive to learn how to kill them, in the ship's medical bay. Actor Choi Sujin worked with samples of Veltar genetic material she had been collecting for over a year. The biological weapon floating in the test tube beside her was her masterpiece. It would attack every Veltar on their homeworld simultaneously, spreading through their air and water systems faster than they could respond. Doctor, are you ready? Kim's voice came through the intercom. The weapon is prepared, she replied, sealing the final batch of biological agents. Once we release it into their atmosphere, every Veltar on the planet will be dead within 72 hours. And humans. Completely harmless to human biology. We tested it extensively on the prisoners we captured. Kim paused. How many prisoners survived the testing? None. But the data was very useful. Through the ship's communication system, Lee listened to the panic spreading through the Veltar homeworld. Their orbital defense platforms were sending desperate messages to the approaching human fleet. Unknown vessels, identify yourselves. You are entering restricted Veltar space. Kim activated the main communication array and broadcast on all frequencies. His voice reached every Veltar ship, every orbital station, every settlement on the planet below. Veltar Command, this is the human fleet, he said calmly. 18 months ago, you came to our world. You killed 7 billion of our people. You thought you were harvesting a planet? You wanted to see what our species becomes when you take everything from us. The alien homeworld filled the entire view screen now. Cities covered the surface like glowing circuits, connected by transport tubes and energy networks. Billions of Veltar lived down there, going about their daily lives with no idea that death was coming from the stars. We are the answer to your question, Kim continued. You created us. Every human in this fleet exists because you tried to make us extinct. We learned from you. We adapted. We became what we needed to become. Park Min-ho stood at the weapons station, his fingers hovering over the controls that would release Dr. Choi's biological weapon into the planet's atmosphere. Around him, other survivors worked at their stations with the same cold efficiency they had developed during the long months of guerrilla warfare on Earth. Sir Park reported, all ships are in position. Biological weapon deployment systems are armed and ready. Lee watched the tactical display show the human fleet spreading out around the Veltar homeworld. Each ship carried enough biological agents to sterilize a continent. Together, they could kill everything alive on the planet below. The Veltar defense fleet is approaching, Yoon reported. 300 ships, all armed with the same weapons they used against Earth. Kim smiled. The same weapons we learned to turn against them. The battle was brief. Veltar ships designed for orbital bombardment were no match for human crews, who had spent 18 months learning every weakness in alien technology. The humans had modified their captured ships, replacing standard systems with weapons that the original designers never imagined. When the last Veltar defense ship exploded in silent fire, Kim gave the final order. All ships deploy biological weapons, complete sterilization of the target world. 57 ships released their deadly cargo into the planet's atmosphere. The invisible death spread through the air currents, carried by the wind to every corner of the Veltar homeworld. Dr. Lee recorded everything. documenting the end of the species that had tried to end humanity. In her notes, she wrote, "The Veltar believed that killing most of a species would weaken the survivors. They were wrong. They created something far more dangerous than the original species. They created a weapon with nothing left to lose." Below them, the lights of Veltar cities began to go dark one by one. The reckoning was complete.